unsettling, the journey no longer felt like a normal road trip. It felt like we were slowly leaving behind the familiar world. The road to Sandakphu began quietly, but with every turn, the mountains became more serious. The altitude kept rising, the air became thinner, the cold became sharper, and slowly, the signs of settlement started disappearing behind us. No crowded streets, no city noise, no constant network signal reminding us of the life we had left below. Only the road, the vehicle, the fog, and the endless body of the Himalayas surrounding us from every side. This was not the kind of beauty that tries to comfort you. This was wild beauty, barren, silent, untamed. The brown landscape stretched across the mountains like an old, forgotten kingdom. The grass looked dry, almost burned by winter. The roads twisted through empty ridges, disappearing into fog like paths from an adventure book. At times, it didn't feel real. It felt like we had entered some world from a video game, a place created not for comfort, but for discovery. And yet, there was peace in that danger. The road was narrow. One side held the mountain wall. The other side opened into depth, silent, cold, and unforgiving. Every turn reminded us that life here moves with a different rule: slow, careful, and respectful. People who live here understand something we often forget in the plains. Nature does not adjust for us. We adjust for nature. Here, even survival has rhythm. The drivers know these roads like memory. For us, every bend felt dangerous. For them, it was daily life. That contrast stayed with me. Because sometimes, what terrifies one person is ordinary life for another. The higher we climbed, the quieter everything became. Not just outside, inside too. The noise in my head, the overthinking, the pressure, the unfinished sadness. All of it slowly started losing its weight. Maybe because the mountains were too large for my problems to remain large. Maybe because silence has a way of reducing everything to its real size. There was no space here for unnecessary thoughts. Only breath, cold air, mist on the glass, wheels moving over rough roads, and the strange feeling that we were being pulled deeper into something ancient. The fog kept changing the world around us. One moment, the road was visible. The next, everything disappeared. The mountains would hide themselves, then reveal themselves again, as if they were testing our patience. And maybe that was the lesson. Clarity is not something we can force. Sometimes, life gives us fog. Sometimes, it gives us distance. Sometimes it covers the path so completely that all we can do is trust the next few feet in front of us. And still, we move. That is what this road felt like. A lesson in surrender. The more we climbed, the more isolated we became. There were stretches where it felt like civilization had simply ended. No houses, no people, no familiar sounds. Just ridges, cliffs, mist, and the pale brown silence of the high mountains. And strangely, I didn't feel afraid. I felt empty in a good way, as if the mountains had removed something from me, something heavy, something I had carried for too long. This journey also marked something unusual for me. In a way, it felt like my first international trip. Not through airports or immigration gates, but through mountain roads where India and Nepal quietly meet and separate. One moment you feel inside Bengal. The next moment, the landscape, language, and air make you feel like you have crossed into another country. Borders here don't feel like lines on a map. They feel like wind, like culture, like prayer flags moving between two lands. And through all of this, Sandakphu waited somewhere ahead. Higher, colder, more distant. The road kept climbing into the mist, and with every passing minute, the mountains felt less like scenery and more like a presence. They were not background anymore. They were the story. The silence of the Himalayas is difficult to explain. It is not empty silence. It is full of age, memory, danger, and beauty. The kind of silence that makes you stop performing, stop pretending, stop running. And maybe that is why I felt peaceful there. Because for once, I didn't have to be anything. I only had to sit inside that vehicle, watch the fog swallow the road, and let the mountains take away the noise, piece by piece. The road to Sandakphu was dangerous, but it was also beautiful in a way I had never witnessed before. Not polished, not easy, not made for comfort, but raw, ethereal, and strangely healing. As we moved deeper into that barren, mist-covered world, I felt like we were not just climbing altitude. We were climbing out of our own minds, leaving behind tension, leaving behind pressure, leaving behind the version of life that always felt too loud. And somewhere between the fog, the cold, and the endless silence, the mountains gave us something rare: a clear mind, and a road that kept disappearing ahead. After the road to Sandakphu, the journey started changing again. The roads became rougher, the landscape became emptier, and slowly, the fog began to surround everything. Somewhere along that cold and silent route, we reached Thakum Valley. By then, we were no longer moving through a normal travel destination. It felt like we had entered a forgotten part of the world. No tower, no internet, no network. No sound of traffic, no sign of the life we came from. Only the road, the valley, the mist, and the endless silence of the mountains. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely disconnected. But strangely, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom. Back in the city, no network feels like panic. Here, it felt like peace. No messages, no deadlines, no pressure to prove anything. Just cold wind moving through the valley, fog covering the slopes, and sunlight breaking through the clouds in small golden fragments. Thakum didn't feel like a place made for comfort. It was barren, brown, quiet, almost unreal. The trees stood like old witnesses, some alive, some broken, some reduced to dark shapes against the mist. The land had no polished beauty. It was raw, isolated, and completely untouched by the noise of civilization. The fog moved like a living thing. One moment, it swallowed the valley completely. The next moment, it opened just enough to reveal a hill, a road, a lonely tree, or a distant slope. And when the sunlight entered through that fog, it created something ethereal, a moment that can be seen, but never fully explained. You can record it, you can photograph it, but the real feeling belongs only to the person standing there, breathing that cold air, watching the world appear and disappear in front of them. There are places that make you excited, and then there are places that make you quiet. Thakum Valley was the second kind. The kind of place where speaking too much feels wrong, because the silence itself has weight. We stayed in the only lodge there, a lonely lodge standing in the middle of that open, fog-covered landscape. It felt less like a hotel and more like an outpost at the edge of the world. Inside, the walls were filled with markings, names, messages, signatures, and memories left behind by travelers, vloggers, riders, and road explorers who had passed through this place before us. Some of them were famous, some were probably unknown. But in a place like this, every name felt equal. Everyone who reaches here leaves something behind. A small proof that says, I was here, I crossed this road, I witnessed this silence. And maybe that is what travel really is. Not just reaching places, but leaving parts of yourself in landscapes that change you. We were in Nepal now, not through an airport, not through immigration gates, but through mountain roads, fog, and a border that felt more like wind than a line on a map. One moment India, one moment Nepal. But the mountains didn't care about borders. They stretched across everything. Calm, ancient, untouched by human divisions. Standing there, I realized how small our problems become in front of places like this. The more isolated we became, the lighter my mind felt. Usually, isolation makes the mind louder. But here, it did the opposite. The fog, the cold, the silence, the empty valley. They didn't trap me. They released me. For a while, I wasn't thinking about the past. Not about heartbreak. Not about failure. Not about all the things I had been carrying for months. I was simply there, a small human being inside a vast, mist-covered valley. And for once, that was enough. We were also accompanied by a few Nepali tourists. They were gentle, warm, and friendly. In cities, strangers often remain strangers. But in the mountains, strangers become part of the memory. A small conversation, a shared smile, a moment of warmth in the cold. Up here, comfort doesn't come from luxury. It comes from people. As evening arrived, the valley changed again. The sky slowly became darker. The fog grew heavier. The mountains turned into silhouettes. And then, the sunset appeared. Not like a normal sunset. There was darkness on one side, soft orange light on the other, and the valley standing between them, like a dream caught between two worlds. I don't think I'll ever forget that evening. The clouds moved slowly over the hills. The cold kept growing sharper. And for a few moments, life stopped feeling complicated. Then came the campfire. The Nepali tourists had arranged it, a small fire burning in the middle of that cold, dark valley. Faces glowing in orange light, sparks rising into the night, mountains disappearing into darkness behind us. It felt like a scene from a Hollywood film, not because it was dramatic, but because it was pure. A few people, far away from civilization, gathered around fire, surrounded by fog, cold, and silence. There was something ancient about it. Like fog in a valley, heavy for a while, beautiful in its own way, but never permanent. That night in Thakum, I felt far away from everything, far from home, far from pressure, far from my older self, far from the noise that once felt impossible to escape. And yet, I did not feel lost. I felt free. Maybe real freedom is not always about having everything. Maybe sometimes, freedom is having nothing pulling you back for a while. No signal, no demands, no familiar roads, no predictable comfort. Only a cold valley in Nepal, a lonely lodge, friendly strangers, a fire in the dark, and the mountains watching silently. Thakum Valley was not easy to reach. It was not soft. It was not made for comfort. But that is exactly why it stayed with me. Because some places do not welcome you with luxury. they welcome you with truth. They show you how small you are, how fragile you are, how little control you actually have. And somehow, instead of frightening you, that truth gives peace. The valley reminded me that life does not have to be constantly loud to be meaningful. It does not have to be fast to be real. It does not have to be crowded to feel alive. Sometimes life is a rough road through brown hills. Sometimes it is fog covering everything you hope to see. Sometimes it is a lonely lodge standing against the cold. Sometimes it is a stranger sharing warmth beside a fire. And sometimes it is simply the act of standing still in a place where the world cannot reach you. As the fire slowly burned through the night, I kept looking at the mountains around us. Most of them were hidden now. Only shapes remained. Dark ridges, moving clouds, cold silence. But even without seeing them clearly, I could feel their presence. That is the strange power of the Himalayas. Even when hidden, they dominate everything. Even in darkness, they remain. Even in silence, they speak. And maybe that was the final lesson of this day. Not all beauty needs to be fully visible. Not all healing needs to be loud. Not all journeys need to explain themselves. Some places enter your life quietly. They stay in your memory. And years later, when life becomes noisy again, you remember them. You remember the fog, the cold, the road, the lodge, the sunset, the fire. And for a moment, you feel that silence again. Thakum Valley was one of those places. A place where I felt lost. A place where I felt disconnected. A place where I felt completely removed from the world. And somehow, that was exactly where I found peace.
इंडियन टेस्ट बहुत आता है लेकिन एक जरा सा तस्वीर नेपाली
Before screens, before cities, before all this noise, maybe this is what humans always return to. A fire, a circle, a cold night, and stories no one needed to explain. That night, Thakum Valley felt unreal. A lonely lodge, friendly strangers, a fire in the dark, fog moving through the mountains, and a silence so deep it felt almost sacred. The valley didn't solve anything for me, but it gave me distance. And sometimes, distance is the beginning of healing. Because when you step far enough away from your own pain, you stop seeing it as the whole world. You see it as one small part of a much larger landscape. Like fog in a valley, heavy for a while, beautiful in its own strange way, but never permanent. Thakum Valley was not easy to reach. It was not soft. It was not made for comfort. But that is why it stayed with me. Because some places don't welcome you with luxury. They welcome you with truth. And somewhere in that isolated valley, surrounded by fog, fire, cold, and silence, I didn't feel lost anymore. I felt free.
धन्यवाद आइहाल्यो भने त अब फेरि बस्नु छैन